David, the crux of this is the Fed is meeting to go over some proposals for expanding and loosening bank regulations at certain points in the spectrum for large to smaller type banks. The headline basically is this: the adjustments that the Fed is proposing to make will significantly reduce regulatory compliance requirements for firms subject to what they call Category 4. That is to say, banks with assets between $100 billion to $250 billion in total assets. Reduced requirements there, but keep in place largely the existing requirements for firms subject to what they call Category 1 and 2 standards, which are the biggest banks with global scale out there. One notable dissent to this particular proposal comes from Fed Governor Lael Brainard, who says that this raises the risk that American taxpayers will again be on the hook. In short, I see little benefit to the institutions or the system from the proposed reduction in core resilience that could justify the increased risk to financial stability and to the taxpayer. So all of this, in essence, Carl, David, gang, Sarah, is that the Fed wants to loosen regulations for some of the banks out there on the smaller to mid-sized things. Based upon the latest Fed quarterly data, it looks to be able to affect around maybe 24 banks or so on that spectrum front, guys. Back over to you.
Interesting to hear Brainard. And then it was just a few days ago that Mester talked about elevating capital buffers for very large banks. So this is clearly the focus of some debate among Fed officials.
Yeah, I mean, this idea here is, again, the Fed proposals will look to enhance even some of the standards placed on the biggest, the Tier 1 banks. We're talking about the JP Morgans of the world, that sort of thing. What it does look to do, though, is try to loosen some of the regulatory burden placed on, say, regional-sized banks, perhaps like a Fifth Third Bank or a Key Corp, that level of bank out there. So whether or not this goes through or not, there are at least debates within the Fed itself about whether loosening capital requirements and restrictions on some of those banks is in the best interest of perhaps preventing or maybe even exacerbating a possible financial crisis in the coming months and years, guys.